the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have conflicts of interest or declarations to make?
So on item F1, I live in the 300-foot area for that nightly rental.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? I also own a nightly rental in town. So. Okay, let's take us to the approval of agenda order. Anybody have any issues with the agenda order?
No.
Take a motion to
Make a
approve.
motion, we approve the agenda order, B1.
I've got a motion.
I second it.
Motion second. We'll start our voting from this side.
Aye.
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 Okay. Did we get a chance to review the minutes? Everybody
Yes.
feel good about that?
Yep.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes
Second it.
What date?
for October 11th,
2020.
2023.
I got a motion.
Second.
You got a motion and a second. Oh,
Aye.
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 All right, this will take us to our public forum. This is going to give the public the opportunity to speak on anything they would like to speak on. You have 3 minutes, but it's not on the agenda tonight. So if you'd like to do that, I'll open the public forum now. No takers. Okay, I'll close the public forum. Takes us to our reports. Just a couple of things I just wanted to say. We noticed on or if you've noticed on the agenda, it doesn't have the general plan applicability on there tonight. That is from council the last meeting, not the last council, but 2 council meetings ago. They gave us some direction on what they wanted to see in that. So Riker and I met and we did some changes. What it is including the policies that Washington County had for their general plan. We're putting that into Washington City. I'm sorry. Thank you. We're putting that into the ordinance itself, and then also referencing a map. And so that's with Heath now going through legal review. So that's why we don't have that on our agenda tonight. And that's all I have to say. Any of the commissioners have anything? Okay, Riker?
Yeah, so last week or 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend the Utah Housing Action Coalition. In that conference, they just gave updates on the state of Utah's housing and where we rank as far as our median home price with the rest of the nation. We're currently 7th in the nation. And then they also provided some different options for home buyers who are looking to enter the market.
7th lowest or 7th highest?
7th highest.
Okay.
And then to keep you updated, the following are the ordinances that we're currently working on. Criminalizing an ordinance to criminalize our code, a landscape ordinance. We currently have that in draft form and we're reviewing that now. A site plan ordinance, the subdivision ordinance that will include the changes from the previous update to state code. A parks ordinance, a lot split ordinance, an ordinance regarding accessory dwelling units, updates to our sign ordinance, and as per direction from the previous city council meeting, an ordinance to define taverns. In addition to that, there's a number of applications that have been submitted that we're currently reviewing that should come before you in the next little while.
Okay, did you have a question for?
Yeah, I just, can we get an update on the bypass road situation?
As far as progress complete type of a deal?
Yeah.
So in essence, Bob usually gets that to the city council, but where we're at right now, I attend those meetings on Thursdays. And essentially they're still on a track to get to the first quarter, March, April, to finish that project. One of the things I was going to talk about, you might have seen today, they are actually paving that south end where they've been tying into the existing utilities such as the water, the sewer, the different things such as that. So a lot of those people on the heights are getting pretty excited because they'll actually have a nice road back out. Other things that are happening along the parkway, we'd had a pre-construction meeting this morning, and I'm kind of jumping to my report. I'll let Riker finish his first, but I can give you that in just a second.
Yeah, I didn't, unless you guys have questions for me, I didn't have anything else.
I'm sorry, I thought he was done, so.
No, and I didn't mean, I just took over. I
Yeah.
apologize. So anyway, this morning we had a pre-construction meeting for the water tank, that 2 million gallon tank that they're installing. Within the next few days, we'll be issuing the notice to proceed. There's a few items of just cleanup work that we need to get, paperwork to get in place. That should start. As you know, the phases 1 and 2 has already been they're starting to grade on that. We had a pre-construction meeting a while back, and they've got all the things they needed there. Judd Palmer Construction or Excavation is still working on the south end quite vigorously. The bridge decking, I believe, went in last week for the utility bridge and the other one. If you ever, I'm not going to say get the opportunity to go up, but you can. They do drone videos every so often. We can get you one of those, but it's pretty amazing to see it starting to tie in on that west side. The grade is starting to meet the grade of the bridge, which is kind of fun to see as engineeringly wise. It's one of those things we all, as engineers, are all kind of the geek out. Oh, look at this, we're part of it. It's also proud, proud that it's actually coming together and it's working nicely. So things are working well. I don't know if Keith had something to add there.
Just a question. Have you heard when they plan to start working on the north tie-in?
I have not. The last I heard with that was Judd was in the process of signing that change order to take over and do that. I would have to talk with Bob.
I know that Stanley, I looked at that change order, just confirmed it with him. So I know it's somewhere to be signed. And once it's done, then they take over jurisdiction of what William Charles had remaining to do out there. And a lot of that is the connection on the north end, tying it in, and the acceleration or deceleration lane.
Kind of brings me to my next item there is the Settlers Junction RV. The tie-in that they've done there, they've got some cleanup items with the UDOT right away there. I don't know if you've ridden out there, you probably have. You'll be driving down the road and all of a sudden you're just following the regular lanes and all of a sudden you hit the rumble strips. There's things such as that, little things that they need to fix. They're coming to they've called to the city for their final punch list on the items for the new location of the old Highway 91, which we will refer to now as 1700 North. That's the actual grid number for that road. And then they will be tying in and shutting down that little short section of the frontage road or old Highway 91 so that the exit as you come off I-15 will no longer be, it won't be confusing to people trying to go over to Leeds down the frontage road and accidentally get on I-15. So that's going to be a safety factor right there just in itself, from what I've understood. Like I say, they are hoping to try to get a soft opening here shortly. We're working on that with them. It works in coordination. You guys were able to approve these plans, approve the preliminary plat and the construction drawings and different things. As you've seen the construction happening, it took quite a while for them to get done that past the approvals, and they're coming to that final list where we have the engineers, all the utility companies will sign off, and then they have a bond for a short time, for a year. On those, yes, a warranty bond or whatever. Keith is better on the names than I am. I just talk with the numbers to get it there. And I'm super grateful for what he does. It helps me out quite a bit. Scott Brothers, right across the street, the travel center, they actually have been talking with UDOT pretty extensively. They're going to be required to put a stoplight there at that intersection. So they're criteria and standards that UDOT has. With that, they have asked what our grading permit process is. That they've gone through one round of the joint utility committee reviews. So they've submitted construction. What that means is they've submitted construction plans, and they've actually had comments back from the engineer, the geotechnical, all kinds of different things. And so they're making those changes quickly to their plans. They will resubmit to the city, and all the utility companies and engineering and everybody else will review to see that they made those changes to the plans. The plans will be updated. And if there's anything beyond that, we could have a third review. But in the meantime, as per the grading ordinance, they can go forward and get their grading permit with bonding and different things such as that without having finished construction drawings at that point. But so that's kind of where we're at with them. Let's see. I was going to tell you that we now have Dominion Energy. They came to the Joint Utility Committee and presented plans that will bring natural gas from the north end up by I-15 down to the Parkway, and then down along the Parkway to the phases 1 and 2 that are being graded currently. I spoke with Rocky Mountain Power today, and he said that they're coming up from the south, so they're still waiting for the cut to be finished. They've ordered infrastructure and things and contracted with the private direct developer with Firelight to bring power up on that. So and knowing this, with the construction plans for the Parkway, all of those utilities are designed in there and have a proper place, so they will have to fall in that place. That's the only fun thing about that is they'll have to pull up the ground, put their utility in, put the ground back, and replace everything as it sits now.
It won't be going under the asphalt. It's
The what?
it won't go under any of the asphalt on the Parkway.
It will not.
To the
It will
side.
not. It will, yeah,
within the right of way.
yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. That's a very good clarification there. Is all of those utilities are off the side of asphalt. They don't fall within side. And then we put sleeves at the intersections to make sure that they have paths, so they don't have to dig through the intersections or bore underneath. They can go down through the sleeves, the utility sleeves at the intersections if they need to cross the Parkway. Anyway, other than that, that's really my report. If you have any questions.
As I'm driving down, how is that interchange going to go from the bypass onto the existing road? Is there going to be a light? Is there going to be
Bypass onto the existing road. Help me.
where the cut is being made now?
Mhm.
When it transitions, is it going to be a yield sign? Is it
For right now, so it'll if anybody ever wants to come into my office, I've got the plan, some exhibits that we've had for quite a while that shows that basically as you're going down there, you're going to tee into the new Parkway, and there would be a stop sign right there for now.
so the,
As development grows and different things such as that, traffic studies will be asked and warranted. When it is warranted, there will possibly be a stoplight that will be needed. But
there will be acceleration and deceleration lanes on both sides of that T intersection too, so the cars can slow down to turn onto the Parkway or speed up getting on to SR 17 from the Parkway.
yeah, exactly. Okay. And as other things develop out there, those other lanes will be additional added to the Parkway. So development as it grows, it widens and adds other lanes as well to that Parkway. So any other questions anybody might have, or just kind of a project update of what's going on?
thanks. All right, that'll take us to our business items. F1, discussion on nightly rental application submitted by, and I apologize, is it Lane Power? Lane Power, okay. Tax ID number T-ACP-18. Current zoning is R120, single family residential. Riker.
Yeah, so this application has been reviewed by staff. We've reviewed 10.17.3 and found this application to be compliant with that. I've gone on site and reviewed the parking requirements for the application and have found that to be in compliance with 1017.3 as well. On this particular application, there has yet to be an approved fire inspection provided. And it also looks like there's not currently a CO on the proposed nightly rental. And so staff suggests that any recommendation for approval should take those two items into account.
Okay. Any questions?
How many openings do we still have for nightly rentals?
So,
One.
yeah, should these two move forward, we would have one more.
We only had one more.
We had two, but one of these were part of that. Well, we actually had three, and these two had not been completed. So
Is this the garage that's been made into a nightly rental?
Yeah, would you please stand up? Would you state your name and
Lane Power,
address?
335 South Ash Creek Drive.
Thank you.
So you no longer have a garage in that house for yourself then?
No, so it's above the garage. It's it was a pre-existing flex space. We just added a bathroom there and turned where that door is it used to be a window. So we put a deck off of the window there and converted it into a door. So there's a stairwell going down the back side of our garage, and that's how you get into the unit.
That's how you access it through the stairs?
Yes, sir.
One way in? Record only one way in, one way out?
Technically two. Sorry, there's a pre-existing stairwell that already went up to the space, and then we added the stairwell that goes off the deck down the backside of.
They got two ways to go.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
That door outside.
Yes, sir.
So you currently don't have a COO on it. Do you have any kind of idea on time frame and when that'll happen?
Sorry, COO.
Occupancy certificate. Thank you.
it's a certificate of occupancy from the building inspector.
Has he gone out and done a final inspection and issued a certificate of occupancy for that space?
Is this for the building permit?
Yes.
Yeah. So we did the railing incorrectly on the stairwell going down. So that's the reason why we failed the inspection. So once we're done with that, next week is when I'm planning on getting that fixed. And hopefully at that point, we're good to go.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, that is a requirement of our ordinance that they've got to have a certificate of occupancy for the space that they're going to utilize. So I would condition any approval on it not becoming effective until that's issued.
Another thing is they've got to have the fire inspection, and I don't know
Yes.
that they would have fire inspection
Yeah.
approval. So
You guys know the fire inspection and the building inspector are one and the same.
yeah,
So
right,
when he gets fire inspection, he won't get fire inspection until he gets CO.
right. And so in our code states 30 days from application date. So if that's not completed by that time,
Right.
then it'll be kicked back out.
Makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Any other
This-
questions for
This is above your garage, right?
Yes, sir.
Above your, so you can still park your cars in the garage.
Yeah. We have a full 2-car garage under there.
And that was all verified parking spaces and all.
Yeah. And the driveway was also measured and it meets the requirements in our code. So
Okay.
So there's room to pull in and out of the garage while you have a guest parked in your driveway?
There is, yeah, on that far right side of the property, if you're facing the house, we've got 2 9x18 parking spots that we're going to start utilizing.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant?
Thank you.
Unless you have anything else to add.
That was good. Thank you.
Okay, I will open this up for public hearing. Public input is sought on nightly rental application submitted by Lean Power, tax ID T-ACP-18, current zoning R120, single family resident. The public hearing is now open. Anybody want to speak on that? Okay, we've got 3 letters that were sent in to us that we'll read. go ahead and read yours first. Yeah. you'll be
Okay,
second.
dear Planning Commission, I am writing in request for public input on the Lane Power nightly rental unit. Oh, from Nate Wells, sorry. Okay. We live just south of the unit in question, which has apparently operated illegally as a vacation rental for the better part of the past year. In that time, we have had several of its renters mistakenly arrive for check-in at our own home, including one at nearly midnight to awaken our family from sleep. The owners appear to live outside of the area and are not immediately available to address problems that a resident or on-site manager could promptly handle. In addition, it has been problematic that there is no off-street parking available for renters staying in this unit. The ground level of the home has been occupied as a long-term rental using limited parking in the driveway that in practice cannot be shared with the tenants staying in the upstairs unit above. Those staying in the nightly rental have been parking on street on the opposite side of the road all year, which isn't excusable under the current city code. This would likely continue if the application is approved. We, like almost all people, would rather see the character of our neighborhoods protected from the problems that inevitably come with opening the door to nightly rentals. It should remain a requirement that these rentals are owned by residents of Tokerville, who can see regularly and firsthand how these operations degrade the atmosphere of our neighborhoods, while still taking accountability for the difficulties experienced by those who choose to live and work in this community. As neighbors to this property who would continue to be negatively affected, we are against the approval of this application. Kind regards, Nate Wells.
Okay, will you read yours?
This letter is from Laura Lowe. Excuse me. I own one of the lots across the street from Powers property, which is currently zoned as single-family residence. That is the type of neighborhood I expected it to remain. Yet I've heard that the structure has already been modified to accommodate 2 or more families. I'm sure the Planning Commission is as disappointed as I am to be asked to approve this after the fact, rather than had the Powers followed the preferred and established procedure of seeking approval first. I'm concerned that the house modifications may not be done according to code and wish that it be inspected for quality assurance. I would also expect that all vehicles associated with the house be able to park off the street. As with any rental, there is increased risk to the neighborhood for potentially more noise and more nuisance, and hope the owner has a plan to proactively mitigate any problems. I understand the incentive for many property owners in Washington County and elsewhere to rent out their residences when not owner occupied, and feel this is a trend that will continue. I ask that the Tokerville Planning Commission ensure that all the rules and code are followed when considering applications for nightly rental to keep the community the wonderful place it has been. Sincerely, Laura Lowe.
Okay, the next letter is from Cheryl Harbert. Dear Tokerville City Planning Commission, the proposed subject matter regarding nightly rental applications, we would like to voice our opposition to this request. We realize there may be some votes in favor of this, but taking into consideration the long game and its effects, this could be more detrimental to our neighborhood community and increase the possibility of more proposals of this kind. We stand out as a small neighbor of homes in comparison to many of the subdivisions of homes surrounding Tokerville. Our city vision says it best. Tokerville community values its historic and cultural heritage, family-oriented atmosphere, abundant open spaces, recreational opportunities, responsive government, and its health and happy atmosphere for all residents through all stages of life. To keep this vision of our community, we need to protect its interests and the neighbors who have made this neighborhood their home. Respectfully, Cheryl Harbert and Jack Morgan.
This is new.
This
is new.
Is it
It's
new?
not the same
Are
one.
we in public?
We are. This is public hearing. We're reading the public hearing.
I rushed down. I was listening to it on YouTube and Anita
Would you-
Eaton.
Thank you.
And I live on the same road as this one. I'm quite concerned that this one is being considered has come before the planning commission when, one, it doesn't have an occupancy certificate for the improvement. And secondly, they have been renting this and have a review just from 2 weeks ago on their Airbnb. Now, it has to be from this one because it shows a photo off of the little deck. And 2 weeks ago, someone said, had a great time, loved your restaurant suggestion, Red Rock Roast. That's the coffee shop. Another one, Drive to Zion was very easy. He indicated that his address was here. He doesn't live here. He lives someplace else and has tenants downstairs. So I'm really concerned, and I know that you don't have to now be owner occupied in order to do this, but with the stairwell of the stairs not being up to compliance, that's huge. Some of us couldn't even put stuff in our own garages to move into our houses without having a certificate of occupancy. And this one's being allowed to run a business without a business license, without. I mean, it has to stop somewhere.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll take a motion to close this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second it.
Have a motion and a second, take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay. Well, what do we think?
So I live just down the street from this. I think everything that everybody has stated is completely accurate. It has been being rented for a year now. People do park exclusively on the street. You can't get a hold of the owner if there's an issue. And I don't know that any of that prohibits us approving that under all of those. But I think what it does is if any of those continue, then they would lose their license to be able to do it. And I would encourage anybody, if there is an issue, to contact the city and to file a complaint. There's fines that can be involved. But we have in our nightly rental or short-term rental ordinance, we have that the owner needs to be able to be in contact within a certain period of time. And if they can't be, again, people can file a complaint with the city and it'll be handled that way. And like I say, then the property owner would then be fined or lose their right to do a nightly rental. And then if they continue to do a nightly rental after that, then there's more fines, and we have a compliance officer that can take care of that. So yeah, there's been a lot of issues with that place up to now, and I'm really hoping that the applicant takes this to heart and says, okay, we're going to do much better and move forward. That's kind of my feeling.
Okay.
One comment, I noticed on the application that it says, will there be a designated property manager, emergency contact other than the owner who will be responsible for ensuring compliance? And the application says no. So according to the code, and we need to be able to, there has to be a way to contact a property manager or
Yeah.
an owner.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have trouble with it just because of the letters. It sounds like we didn't have anything in favor and all the neighbors were not in favor. Mainly because he's been in violation, which he shouldn't have been doing anyway. And I'm confused with the two parking stalls together like that because one car can't move without the other car. And the owner says That's his garage, but it says that this could be used also. Is that, they can park in that garage too?
You can answer.
It says right there, additional parking spaces located in our garage.
Correct, yeah.
But what about the people that are living in the house? Where do they park?
So they park their cars in the garage and.
So
and
then there's
maybe I
not
can-
an additional parking spot in your garage. If they're using the garage, these guys have to park there.
In the garage.
No, outside. They can't park in the garage if your owners or whoever's occupying your house is parking in the garage. Because you can't park on the street. If you own the house, you can't park on the street and to accommodate these guys to park. It's a little bit of a problem right there. I don't believe you can use the garage for extra space because the people renting your house, in fact, it's being rented, they got to park in that garage. That's their right to park in the garage and not your rentals.
Correct. And yeah, and just as I get to that, I'd like to, address as many of the concerns that have been voiced. I'm extremely, I'm grateful for all the feedback and want to be able to talk to everything. So thank you for the opportunity. With the parking spots, our idea is that and I'll get to our previous renters here in a second, but the idea is that we have 2 car spots available in the garage, and then the 2 spots that you see there on the drawing. The idea in our mind would be that anyone who would be staying with us as a nightly rental, if they have 2 vehicles, because it is a small unit, they'd be able to move both of those cars. The one in the back closest to the street would be able to move. The one in the front needed to move as well. But maybe I'm misunderstanding your question. Am I addressing that?
Yeah, typically, forcing somebody to park on the street because I don't want to be trapped in by whoever I'm coming with.
Sure.
So can you please move your car? So he moves his car, you pull out, he pulls back in, and you pull in, and the same thing happens. So you're going to park on the street.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
cannot park in the other garage
For sure.
because it's the other occupant's right to park in that garage.
Yeah, and our nightly rental has a 2-person maximum. So we've actually never had a rental that's had more than 1 car anyway. But again, we want to be compliant with whatever standards this city has. Another thought with that. We invite all of our guests to park in that spot on our driveway. And up until this point, I will be the first one to admit that we can be much better at making sure that they do that and they're not on the street. We want to, just from the feedback that we've gotten, we want to make sure that happens. But maybe if I can take maybe an additional 60 seconds just to explain our circumstances and I guess our story thus far, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we moved in May of last year. With the anticipation, my wife and I, we were planning on moving into Tokerville, and we both have remote jobs. We both work in the tech sector. We were up in Lehigh. We're moving down here just because home prices were a little bit more favorable, and we thought the area was beautiful. And anyways, we wanted to essentially start over down here. So we went through a full renovation of the home with also the anticipation of converting the garage, the space above the garage, to supplement our income, to have our mortgage payment not be as intense on our income. So and around August of that same year, out of the blue, very unexpectedly, we were told that my wife needed to be back in office 2 days a week in Lehigh. And so we made the decision to move back up to Lehigh and rent out our home. Now I say this, and again, this is my word that you're having to take, but we've operated one other nightly rental before in our previous home, and that was in an area where there weren't any restrictions, and we had a lot of neighbors that were doing the same thing. So incorrectly on my part, I didn't do my homework essentially, and we moved forward and with our current, with our pre-existing plans, and turned the space into a nightly rental. But whenever we had to head back up north, we really wanted to move back down here as soon as we could figure out our remote work situation. And we're hoping to do that within the upcoming months here. And the lease that we had with our current tenants in our home, it just went up and they're moving out next week, actually. Anyways, that's kind of our stories in a nutshell. I apologize, I'm not a very good storyteller, but hopefully that gives you a flavor for where we've been for the past year. We love the town, we love the people. We've met lots of people here that we really enjoy, and we want to be considerate to our neighbors and make sure that we're doing everything that we can to hear everyone and make changes. I will absolutely, if we're approved, given that, I want to make sure that we have our guests off the street at all times in those designated parking spots. And I think I may have just misunderstood the question on the application. Reaching out to us directly is absolutely what we would prefer. That's actually what I thought I was indicating as the property manager. But yeah, eventually we really would love to move back in. So,
Okay.
Sorry, that was a little bit more than 60 seconds.
Thank you. Riker, when we went out and looked at the parking, what did you measure? What did you see? What was the?
So when I made the measurements on the driveway, there was, not counting the garage, there was enough space there to fit 4 parking stalls or 4 parking spaces in the driveway itself.
But not being able to utilize the garage if you do that.
If they were right up against the garage. And so the way that the applicant has it configured would still allow for space to back out of the garage based on what was measured and based on what our code says.
Okay. Heath, the certificate of occupancy. Our code says, I was working on the fire part of that. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, we can't approve a permit for a dwelling that doesn't have a certificate of occupancy, just like we shouldn't be allowing someone to move into a dwelling that doesn't have a certificate of occupancy. And so I think that is critical, along with the nightly rental or the fire inspection. If the Plan Commission is inclined to grant approval or recommend approval of this permit, I would strongly suggest that they have the time period in which to comply with getting their certificate of occupancy and their fire inspection. I believe that's 30 days from
application submittal.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to share my experiences having a neighbor who has had a rental very similar to the situation where they started, and then the city kind of tightened up our rules, and they had neighbors complaining because there was on-street parking. My neighbor did provide off-street parking, and they've been pretty good to manage it since that time. So I feel like while it is frustrating that they weren't initially in compliance, I feel he's here with a good faith effort to get in compliance. And while there are complaints, we have clear understanding of what all the complaints are. And I think that if he's willing to try to address them, like Commissioner Eaton was pointing out, we have a method for if the problems continue, then we can revoke that license in the future. The only item that's still a concern for me is, are you guys still living up north? I think it would help if we could get somebody on, like if you made a contact with a local property manager, that if there is a problem, someone physically can come be present in a short period of time.
Sure. That's actually a requirement in the code.
Yeah.
So if it were to be approved, you would have to comply with every aspect of that code. So if you haven't read through it, I'd strongly recommend that you did.
Jenny, one question I had for you with your example or your experience, did the owner live on site?
They did.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it
So
was easier for them to enforce it.
to
And that's
enforce
why I was saying,
parking
if we could get a
off-street.
property manager who can come knock on the door and say, hey, I'm
Well-
sorry, you're parked on the street and you need to.
Yeah.
That's what our code
Yeah.
requires.
And you can
A
also.
simple explanation would probably be your permanent tenant, but if your tenant's moving out and it's going to be vacant, then you probably would need to have someone physically
Mhm.
here local that can.
Yeah.
Because if there's a problem, we need to be able to get a hold of somebody and say, either you have them turn the music down, or we'll call the sheriff's department out to do it. And if you're physically in Lehigh, that seems to be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, and this is what the code says in its item F in 1017.3. It says response time, the owner or other person designated as property manager, emergency contact shall respond to complaints and or concerns within 30 minutes of any phone call or other notification and be on site within 1 hour if necessary. Failure of the owner or property manager to respond may result in violation and possible fines to the business license holder and property owner.
Okay.
So that's what the code says. So, if we were to prove anything, you're going to have to follow everything that's in the code.
Sure.
And that may be as short-lived until you move down here. If you move back down here, then the need to have a relationship with property management company that can provide that service isn't needed any longer.
So what is the
Understood.
mechanism for neighboring people around a short-term rental to find out their contact information?
Call the city. They have to keep it updated with the city.
Okay, because, I've tried it on this very resident here, and I've had to go through some lengthy thing of, through Airbnb or whatever, and then you can't say, hey, just call me, because then they kick it out because they don't want you contacting,
Soliciting and stuff
and
like
it was a serious pain in the butt.
So they're required to keep that, and if it changes, they're supposed to update that with the city. And so we should be having a current contact for either the owner or or a property management individual company who can provide those response times at all times, so that if there's that problem. And if you're experiencing it, I would suggest that you contact city, get that contact number, and then next time there's a problem.
Right. And I think everybody in town that has a nightly rental around them, if there's starting to be issues,
Yeah, they probably need to
contact
call
the city and
get the contact number, and
it's not just you, so.
No, I apologize for the difficulty, and we'll be sure to maintain that.
All right. So the question is whether or not we approve this based on the not having an occupancy and also fire inspection. So the code allows for that time frame, like Keith was saying, that from the date of application, 30 days. If you were to have a certificate of occupancy and also the fire inspection within that 30 days, I
And
don't see,
also
and also,
Property manager.
well,
A phone number.
so he'd have to comply with
He'd have
everything
to.
in the code within
Mhm.
that 30 days or
Right.
within that time frame.
Right.
Other than that, I don't see any reason to not approve it. Other than I know he has past history. I don't know that we can really dive into that so much. So.
yeah, I don't think
I see it different.
And I do have a little bit of issue with the parking there too.
I don't like stacked parking. It's a safety hazard. But if it's truly been a nightly rental before, and here we are sitting, I would prefer, I'm gonna vote nay, but I prefer not to put it. I'm okay if we let him come back and get everything in and come back here in a month and have everything in line. I don't really want to put stuff on the back burner. So if he gets it, and if he doesn't get it, if he gets a CO, he needs to come here prepared and done with a complete thing.
Wayne, I
That's the
think
way
if
it
you
ought to
wanted
be.
to table this issue and bring it next month, it would still be pending. I think their place in line. I mean, there is
Yeah, I don't want them to lose their
one
place in
permit
line.
left, but
But
their
I-
place in line would be saved, and that way they could have that time period to get that. So we don't have to make it conditional upon a fire inspection and a CO.
I mean, the file's been committed, but
How would that affect though the 30 days from application?
Well, I have a question about that because I'm looking at the application and it looks to me like it was signed 8/30/2023. So it seems to me like we're
Yeah,
past
out of
30
that
days
30
right
days.
Yeah.
now.
And so there's a 30 days
So that's long gone.
from
guys.
within. So it could be 30 days before and 30 days after
Mhm,
application.
mhm.
So I think that's already gone. And then,
It
and
is.
the way I understand that is that the application would be null and void if you haven't met all the requirements.
According to the code, it's supposed to be null and void.
Yeah.
It's
Attorney Snow, Heath.
Yeah.
So would that be applicable to when the applicant actually applies or when the application is deemed complete by staff?
Yeah, and I would say the latter, what you've indicated, and that's what I can't glean from the application. I can only see a date when it was signed.
So that was, this would still be beyond that 30 days, but that application was deemed complete on the 5th of October.
I just barely, yeah. Just barely said it.
Well, that
Well-
to me is.
Yeah.
So one thing in our code, when we were talking about this in adopting it, with whether the 30 days was too short.
Too short. I remember that very discussion.
Yeah, you remember that conversation?
Mhm.
So
Well, if the 30 days is too short and you can't drag it out because there's somebody maybe on the waiting
That's
list.
exactly
Yeah,
why.
and
That's why
that
we.
was the entire,
that
that
was
was the
why we-
discussion that
I
was
mean,
had
exactly.
here was,
And the
how
other-
long is it? Because other people are waiting
Yeah.
Exactly.
further
If you're
back in
going
the
to have a
line.
vacation rental, you know what you're going to do. You're going to build it. You're going to do it. You're going to get it inspected. You're going to get your seal. You're going to get everything in line and come here with a complete package according to our code. And then we accept or deny.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we could have people who are building homes 6 months of wait and say, hey, we want to do this. And,
Yes.
and
I-
we don't
yeah,
want
that-
it to,
yeah,
and
you
that may
just-
be a little over exaggeration, but I think that this, especially the completed application was October 5th. We're outside that date. So he hasn't met the requirements of the code. I would think that this is a denial. Or a
Well, at that
recommended
point, when
denial.
you say that, then you know what I'm going to say. Because I'm going to stick to the code.
Yeah, that's what
The
I'm saying
application's
to you.
kicked out. It's denied. If you want to bend the code, I'm not going to do it.
So,
What are his options? Can he reapply?
He can reapply, and that's why I asked you, how far away from occupancy you are and those kind of things. And I would suggest that you get close to that before you reapply, or, within that 30-day range, so we can say your application is completed.
For sure.
Or
We
not,
have
not the application, but the time frame, and you've fallen within that time frame.
that makes sense. We have a contractor scheduled for next week to come
Okay.
out and finish this there.
All right.
however, if his application was approved by staff on the 5th of October and our planning commission meeting was the 11th of October, was that too soon?
So the application has to be deemed complete by the time, by our application deadline, which is a week before we're required to
Right.
public notice it.
That's what I'm.
And it didn't come in before that, and so that kicked it to
To this week.
meeting,
to this
which
meeting.
extends the time period.
See, and I think our code should be read as in 30 days from the soonest that an applicant could get to planning commission. Because it wouldn't be
Right.
the applicant's fault
Right.
if he gets everything. First of all, he probably shouldn't have applied for it in August if they weren't ready by November 5th. But setting that aside, if the application wasn't ready until November 5th and there's no way for the applicant to, and not just this applicant, any applicant, if there's no way to get to planning commission within 30 days, that's not the applicant's fault. And so I think we need to review that portion of it to change the wording to.
I could put that on your list.
But I actually think that was on purpose. And that was, if you're and just for the same reason, if somebody comes in and they don't have an application complete, but somebody comes in next week with a complete application,
Right.
now you're giving that person who hasn't done everything they need to do to complete it in front of somebody who already has done all of those things.
But I do think that something more like a 45-day window will take into consideration the noticing requirement for public hearing and planning commission. And because just like this situation, the timing on his kicked him all the way into this meeting in November.
30.
What I
Because we
remember,
didn't have enough time to do it for the October meeting.
right.
And so if you went 45 days, which isn't,
Yeah.
it's 1.5 times what the
Yeah.
length is right now, that would probably,
When we were talking about the 30 days, I remember we were discussing that just to avoid this whole situation of let's apply in August, but not have all of our ducks lined up until November. Once you apply, a person should have everything ready to go when they apply. And so we're avoiding this second part of it.
Well, it's been 67 days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's past 45, that's past.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is there's a new application fee. And he could reapply tomorrow and possibly get that, restart his 30 days under our current ordinance and get it done in time, and thus preserving his spot in line, I guess, if we want to say that. But it does come with a little bit of a cost, I guess. So.
Yeah, I know that we've approved them several times with, subject to fire inspection.
We have done that.
Because I don't, why go get a fire inspection if you're not going to be approved?
And
I don't know.
can I make one more comment on that? Yeah, it's just, I apologize. It's just general lack of understanding. And again, I should have done more of my homework, and I actually had a fire inspection scheduled for yesterday, and just because of a conflict with work, wasn't able to make it happen. But it was the permit to get the building permit. I was just completely unawares that was continued, or that the fire inspection and the building permit were connected. And I'm learning. I apologize. So we're going to get that done.
All right, thank you. Well, what do we want to do?
I want to go by the book. I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion, we deny nightly rental business item F1.
F1.
Recommend denial.
Yeah, recommendation
So
for
you need to change it to recommend denial.
Huh?
Recommend denial, not that we didn't.
Didn't I recommend it? Yeah. I recommend denial for business item F1.
Okay, got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second.
F1B denied.
Got a motion and a second. Any need to further discuss this?
I think just one additional point would be that there's a possibility of looking at this. This is a recommendation to the city council for the issuance of the permit. If by chance between now and when the city council meets, a CO and a fire inspection occurs, we'd have to recognize that, I don't know if the council, I don't know how I'd advise the council on that.
Well, and
Wouldn't you be,
I guess.
Because I was thinking that very same thing, because that's where second is. It's still going to go in front of the city council.
well, and planning commission, we don't have the leeway to say, hey, the.
No, I agree. I agree. I'm only throwing that out there. I'm not
Yes.
saying,
No, I get that. I'm just.
And I
making
think-
the comment.
I think that could make you feel comfortable if you do take the action to recommend denial. I think the applicant needs to understand you're not being denied. It's just a recommendation to the city council, and at their next meeting, I'm assuming this is on their agenda. So there is a little bit of time. Isn't that
It's the next
15th?
week. It'll be next week, a week from tonight.
week from Wednesday? So if for some reason you can get that
Can you
squared
just
away,
re-up-
there
can
might
you
be,
just
you
reapply
might
tomorrow?
find a city council willing to not follow the recommendation of the planning commission because they have to follow the code. And if you can show in the interim that the code has been followed, they may
We're supposed.
disregard the
we
planning
are-
commission's recommendation.
Yeah, and my understanding is your recommendations based on the 30 days and not being compliant after application completion.
It's
date.
the CO, it's
And
everything.
that is what our code says. So it's kind of,
We're following the code, and I can't imagine the city council overriding the code.
Well, but if in the interim, he does get, between now and next Wednesday, he gets a certificate of occupancy and a fire inspection, then he's not contrary to the code. So it would only be contrary to your recommendation, but it would still be
it would
compliant
be
with the code.
contrary to the 30 days.
Yes,
So, and
I
that's
get
the
that.
part
I
that
get
would
that.
be-
Okay,
He's
that makes,
40
and
and you would-
that's an interesting point.
It's 67 days out.
Well, not 67 from when the staff
Well, from
deemed
the
it
signature right
complete.
here.
Well, so
No.
that wasn't a completed application. That's the date he put in for application.
When he made his application, then when RAC deemed it complete.
Right.
um,
That was,
October
what date
5th.
was that again?
October 5th.
It appears that we still got a few bugs to work out,
Yeah.
you know, on that.
Agreed.
And there are some things, we knew that when we created this new ordinance, there were going to be things that will need to be changed.
But the planning commission body has rules we got to follow.
So I have a motion. I have a second. Any further need to discuss?
Can I say one more thing? I think it's silly to make him pay the $400 twice when there's a mitigating circumstance as far as the deadlines, which was he was pretty close to the 30 days, but then didn't have noticing time. And now we have a known problem with our existing code. To me, those are mitigating circumstances in which that's the reason we have humans here talking about this instead of like a computer enforcing the code according to exactness.
That
So,
would be totally city council.
I would vote against Wayne, but I'm okay with that. And I'm an alternate, so I don't even get to vote. I'm just bringing that up because I get to. So thank
Money,
you.
we don't talk money here, I don't believe, in the planning commission. That's not our decision.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Take a vote.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Doesn't matter.
Well, yeah, it doesn't
I
matter.
wouldn't worry
Nay.
about it. You've got to.
Okay, thank you. That will take us to our next item, business item F2. Discussion on nightly rental application submitted by Michael Orvin, tax ID T-PARK-2-212. Current zoning is R120, single family residential. Riker.
Yes, so with this nightly rental, similar situation as far as it's been reviewed to be compliant with the code as far as parking and the other requirements in 1017.3. It does not yet have a fire inspection. It also has yet to acquire a C of O, so similar situation to the previous one. And then just for your information, this application was deemed complete on October 19th.
Just a little bit different set of facts.
It is
right?
different in the fact that it's still within its 30 days of
Yeah.
fire inspection. And so that's the difference between the two applications. And it may be that we've got to readdress our time frame and those kind of things. So I understand that, but that's kind of where we're at. So, and like you said, city council can do their thing.
How's that parking work, Riker? I noticed they got a parking area off to the side of the existing building to the north.
Yeah, so they've identified parking adjacent to the garage there.
Yeah.
And then they also have their driveway. So the size of their driveway that they've got there, they have enough space for the 2 parking stalls adjacent that they have identified there for their guests. And they have enough space for 2 more parking stalls in their driveway. That's not counting whatever might be stored
No.
in the garage.
Because if you put it in the driveway, the people in the house can't get out. The way this house is configured, if you park them in the so-called driveway, which is the driveway out to the street,
So I'm referring to the area that goes all the way up to the house. So that, I don't know, Daisy, if you can show the larger,
Black.
more towards the home.
that's the parking area, right?
So that's, there's enough space there for 2 parking stalls according to our code. And then Daisy, if you'll go down and to the right, in that area where the cursor's at now, there's enough space for more than 2
Around
parking
back.
stalls.
Yeah, it doesn't state that, right?
No,
there.
not around back that's part of the driveway right there. That's all concrete.
I know, but if you park anywhere in that spot, those people cannot get out of that garage because that garage is a 90-degree to get back out.
No.
So I guess I'm not understanding what
Well, you
you're
don't have
saying
additional
there.
parking besides what you have there in the parking outlined in the black.
So if the residents were to park on the driveway and the guests were to park in the designated area, both vehicles would still be able to exit via the driveway.
If they in the circle area, the black area, they can't. The guests can't come in that concrete area anywhere without blocking the homeowner out of it.
So I'll let the applicant explain that a little bit further.
Been
But
there.
there is space for both guests and residents to pull in and out simultaneously.
There's a breezeway there as well.
Go ahead if you want to address.
There is a
that.
breezeway.
My name's Mike Orban. There's 2 driveways. So as well as there's ample parking on the north end of the home. So there obviously wouldn't ever be a situation where they'd be blocking the north end driveway. And if they did, we'd still have the east side there.
So the driveway's where she's got her cursor at now?
Yeah.
Okay. He was pointing to the other driveway up on top.
Yeah. So there's 2 driveways.
Yeah. So they can park in that one over there or your parking area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I've got the same thing about the manager emergency contact.
Are you?
Yeah.
You gonna live in the home?
Yeah. This is our personal home. So we'll be there 24/7.
Okay.
Well, we're living there. So.
Well, when you rent it out, you'll
Yeah.
have somebody
We'll be there.
available to
Yeah.
call.
We'll be there for an hour. So
Okay.
we'll. In
Uh,
that timeline.
within an hour.
Yeah, within an hour.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you the same question on your certificate of occupancy. When-
Yeah,
when are you
so
gonna have that?
we're thinking the end of next week. It was supposed to be sooner, but the wife loves sconces, so they're back ordered. So yeah, probably the end of next week. if not.
Exterior sconces? Is that what?
Well, sconces on the exterior and in the actual bathroom of the nightly
Oh.
rental too.
Can you cap them?
Well, we have to have.
I've seen that done on like exterior lighting, just
Yeah,
capping.
I think in the actual nightly though, there's not a can light above
Okay,
the
gotcha.
vanity, so we
Okay.
do have to have the sconces.
Okay, so, yeah, there's a possibility he's going to make that one.
Oh, also too, the fire inspection has been paid for. We're just waiting for scheduling. So
I hear that's getting better, but it's not the most prompt right now.
I think we've found a hole in our
Yeah,
ordinance.
I was just going to say, if we're scheduling this, definitely. Okay. All right. Any other questions before I open this up for public hearing? Nope. Okay, I will now open up business item F2. Public input is sought on nightly rental application submitted by Michael Orvin, tax ID T-PARK-2-212. Current zoning is R120, single family residence. Public hearing is now open.
Sorry. Anita Eaton. I find this interesting that staff deemed this a complete application when this home is still under construction. You drive by it tonight, it's readily evident that it is still under construction. They're doing landscaping outside. That's not a big deal. Everybody re-landscapes, but they still have all the plastic on the windows from the paint or from the windows when they were installed. Dumpster from the construction is still there. I think there's something's not right, because if I were to make an application for a short-term rental on a property that has yet to be built, this is what's happening. There is no, in the code, and I've read everything in the code does not say this has to be complete, this has to be complete, this has to be complete when it comes to a certificate of occupancy, but it says it is a residential, and that is an assumption that it is a habitable structure. Right now, this one's not habitable, and the previous one was not habitable. So without a certificate of occupancy, and if you had one where it was a currently being used as a short-term rental, then what is it that stops the property owner from continuing to use it as a short-term rental when maybe they're doing improvements to make it a short-term rental? There's no cease and desist. There should be a cease and desist order if there's something where there's going to be a change. And in this case, this shouldn't have been brought to the staff, shouldn't have even brought this forward, knowing that this is a home that's under construction.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, nothing further. I will take a motion to close public hearing.
Motion, we close public hearing.
I second it.
Motion and a second, take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Commissioner Huntsman?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I make a comment real
Yes, sir.
quick? So as per the ordinance, as we go through that ordinance, when we look at these, just going through the process, we look at the requirements as per that ordinance. And nowhere does it say, until tonight, did we find this a problem, that we have to have a CO, that it can't be under construction. Now, yes, there's definitely a problem there that needs to be
I think it's
fixed.
implied, but it's not.
It is definitely, and I agree with Anita, it is definitely implied, but it is not this is
No, I
absolutely
agree.
required.
I was specifically looking for that and I knew it wasn't in there, but then I saw where it was tied to a fire inspection and they won't pass a fire inspection unless they have a
The
COO.
CO,
So I thought, well, that catches that. Now, if we're looking at, I'm sorry, before it was fire department coming out, I didn't realize it was our building inspector now and his workload and those kind of things. And so that scheduling could actually cause some problems in the time frame and all of that kind of stuff.
And someday it might be a different person, definitely.
Right. So, yeah, I definitely would not do it if in my opinion, we wouldn't approve if it doesn't have a COO or a fire inspection. So to me, it's like, and our code does say 30 days after completed application or after application. So to me, if you can do it all within that time frame, currently we would be able to approve it or recommend approval. If you can't, then I say we can't approve it because the code says that. Now, again, that goes to, we need to either change that or, and also, council can make a determination on that as well. Did I close the public hearing?
So how far out are we on this one?
You said about a week?
Yeah,
We don't have a CO.
I'm getting a CO.
But if he were able to get it within that next, and I think it's 8 days is what I calculated, just quickly looked at. I don't know when his date would be, but
Yeah, because that was deemed complete on October 17th.
right. And so the
tell me.
16th.
Time frame.
17th.
So he's still in his time frame. So if he were to pull through, he could comply with the ordinance. So to me, this one sounds a lot like we could approve this one with that condition.
With conditions.
Conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might say because the council has to act on it and grant the permit, and we don't have another regularly scheduled city council meeting after the 15th, that probably they've got to come into compliance by the 15th with a certificate of occupancy and a fire inspection, which shortens it down to 7 days, not 8. But
Right.
who's counting? But yeah, I think the motion could be to recommend approval so long as the certificate of occupancy and the fire inspection are granted prior to the council taking action on it at next meeting. I think that could be, and if not, if they're not issued, then the recommendation is for denial.
Well, can they make that?
He thinks that they will. He
Is that
said
something
next
you
week.
guys can accomplish?
Maybe we can get the fire inspector there in time. Which sounds like it's the same person, so maybe
It
we
is.
can do both at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
We paid for it, yeah.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Well, and so you understand, we have a cap on how many permits are allowed. If everybody starts putting in now, and then, you have people who are ready and people who are not. And so that's out of fairness. That's why we have that time frame.
And then obviously we thought we were going to be done a lot sooner. But, I mean, if I had a crystal ball, obviously,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just, that's how construction goes.
Right.
Well, you can get a bare floor CO.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
It's not a requirement of the building
I've
code.
done that before. Concrete.
I mean,
work.
you don't have to have all of your carpet down even and still get a certificate. occupancy.
Well, and there's other things that come into that's not just the building inspector. There are public works they need to sign off on that CO as well.
Just that, yeah, connections are.
That
Meter-
the
meter set
connections,
work.
there's no broken concrete, that
Gotcha.
such things such as that. So that could be some different things that could hold it up.
So even if we were to extend this out another 15 days, that, you still have to have your ducks in a row and be ready for an application to fall within that time frame. So what we're trying to look at possibly is changing it so it's not an administrative type thing or a staff thing, but we'd still require the people to come in and be ready with their application, right?
Yeah.
And I think you should have a certificate of occupancy before you can even apply.
I'm going to recommend that we make two changes. One, that we make a condition of the application being certificate of occupancy. And the second thing is 45 days from a complete application.
I like that idea. So Riker, that's.
Certificate of occupancy being a requirement for a complete application. And then 45 days from a complete application.
I agree.
I think, and rather than waiting for code to change, because that's going to take probably 3 months, 2 to 3 months to change those simple things that we found tonight.
Right. We only have one left anyway, so two more, I guess.
We're just putting it on Riker's drafting list. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
And then
eventually
also,
comes to-
Riker, since you're I think we need to address the parking issue. If they've got a 2-car garage, I don't think the parking for their guest should be inhibiting the homeowner from parking in both of those spaces. They need to have alternate parking.
That would clean that up.
First of all,
Yeah.
I think it's a fire safety.
And that's a great point, Stacy. And I think about that. And I think in this context, that makes all the sense in the world. But we do have an off-street parking provision in our ordinances, and it doesn't limit stacking. It just simply says, what is considered and not considered off-street parking and when it's required. And so I don't know if we can or should put a more restrictive requirement into our nightly rental ordinance or not. But I'm just throwing that out there as I'm thinking through this as I'm talking and saying we don't require it in general when someone has to prove off-street parking in other circumstances. For instance, let me just give you an example of commercial setting. You gotta have so many stalls for every square footage of commercial floor space. It doesn't say that those stalls, it does not limit how the parking is laid out or anything like that. But I do see where there is a need, because normally this is obviously in a home or dwelling, there's limited space on a driveway and things like that, where stacking, it might be a valid basis for doing it.
Yeah, I think we should just, if nothing else, let's explore it and see what we can do to.
I would agree. I would agree.
A minimum of 9 feet by 18 feet parking spaces are required. Two of those spaces must be available exclusively for nightly rental use. There shall be no overnight on-street parking or gas.
So if you think about the last applicant, how big was that space over your garage? 9 by 18? How many square feet was it?
The unit itself.
Yeah, the unit itself.
It's about 400 square feet.
And they limited it to 2 occupants. It's interesting, but I mean, yeah, I think to myself, and when you were talking there about, stacked, I don't like that. And I'm thinking, I don't know how often 2 people are going to show up with 2 cars, but I guess it could happen.
I can tell you at my nightly rental it happens, but that was one of the reasons why we said, okay, minimum 2 parking spaces for that, right? I mean, they might have more,
Well, you can have up to 10 occupancy too.
You can.
So,
well, how many bedrooms do you have? You can only have 2 people per
2
bedroom.
per bedroom.
So
Or
it
a
does
total
limit
of
that
10.
on this space, but I do agree though that, for fire reasons, for lots of different reasons, we need to have it not stacked. It has to be where people can get out in an emergency and things like that. So, I do think that we need to maybe, Yeah, go back into the nightly rental ordinance again and clean those things
Council's
up.
going to say, what? It's
Yeah,
back in
that's
front of
what-
us again?
I'm actually
You gonna say
wanting
that,
to hit
Todd?
myself for saying it now. But clearly there are a couple
We just
things
keep
here.
tinkering with it.
I do think COO has got to be one.
Yeah.
That way we're not unfairly putting people who are ready or
It
not.
puts,
ready.
it requires everyone to get to a certain point before they even apply.
Exactly.
And then we
Exactly.
build in
Everybody's
our.
jumping on it before they're ready for it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, we're looking for a motion. I know that there is a possibility that they could pull through by the time their 30 days is up on their application. I think I really liked what Heath had said on that as far as a motion.
Would you like me to restate it?
Please.
Sure. Should you feel inclined, you could recommend approval of nightly rental permit on the condition that between now and the city council meeting and taking action on this permit, that they provide to the city a certificate of occupancy and a proof of a past fire inspection. And that if the applicant can't, then the recommendation is for denial. It's kind of what I call a hybrid recommendation.
So recommendation before the next city council meeting.
On the 15th.
Yes.
It's 1 week. It's 7
Yes.
days instead of 8 days that they technically have, because there's no way the council could act on it the day after.
I would be willing to make that motion.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you.
I'll second it.
They got a motion and a second. Let's take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, be the squeaky wheel and
Yeah.
Keep on him.
Get to work on it. All right. Takes us to business item F3, discussion on Tokerville City General Plan Amendment. Riker.
Yes. So, this version of the general plan before you should include the comments and the changes that were recommended by the Planning Commission in the previous meeting. I did go on to the SharePoint and notice that there was some difficulty pulling those up. I can read those changes to you if you would like. But staff is also still working on a map, an updated map for the future land use map. We're working with Sunrise Engineering on that. And so we would be requesting that after the public have the opportunity to comment on this item, staff would be requesting that this item be tabled until that map can be completed.
I'd make a recommendation that if anyone's here to discuss it, open the public hearing, allow them to, and then we continue the public hearing.
Yes.
We table and continue the public hearing
Okay.
until it's complete with the future land use map, and,
Yeah.
and everyone can clearly see the updates. So yeah, I was looking for that same,
Okay.
the same change.
Sounds good. So
We're not doing it twice.
what's that?
Then we're not doing it twice.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. And then I would also say that as far as reading those comments, I'd rather just see it written down so I can go through it. So
Yeah, I'll make sure
I
that
don't
there's
know
a
that would
redlined version.
make a lot of sense to us.
Upcoming
And we
meeting.
wanted to also give the public ample time to be able
Yeah,
to,
they want, we need them to chew on it.
yeah, let them have ample time to actually come to the city, to the planning commission and actually put their voice into it. You know,
Sounds
we
good.
want people to be able to have a voice about it.
Okay. So any other questions or thoughts before I open the public hearing? Okay, I will now open up public hearing on business item F3, discussion on Tokerville City General Plan Amendment. Public input is sought on Tokerville City Plan Amendment. Public hearing is now open. Nobody?
Nobody.
What does that mean? Okay. All right. Good night.
Thank you, Anita. What? You should tell you that.
I didn't know if I
Going
was
out to
gonna
feed the cows.
get rushed by.
Ready for that motion?
I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion, we-
No,
No,
not,
we're
not to
not
close it.
No,
I'm
no.
sorry.
Motion to
To
continue. the public-
continue. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to continue this to the next meeting,
I'll make the motion.
the public hearing.
Make that motion.
I make a motion that we continue the public hearing for the discussion on the Tokerville City General Plan Amendment until next meeting, which would be in December, until staff and Sunrise Engineering have time to get that map redone.
Okay, I have a motion. Take a second.
I'll second that.
Motion a second. Any need to further discuss this? Okay, let's take a vote.
Aye.
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 And I think the next thing is just a quick call for a motion to table this item or
Okay.
recommendation on the general plan. Now that we're
Oh,
out
yeah,
of the
yeah.
public,
Yeah,
now that
yes.
we're out of the
Okay.
public
All
hearing.
right. Okay, that takes us to business item F4, discussion.
Don't we
Whoops.
have to?
Three
We have to,
3B,
3B.
someone needs to motion to table.
Oh,
item
okay, thank you.
3.
Thank you.
I make a motion, we table item 3F3B.
I second
Motion.
it.
Got a motion second. Take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Wow.
Cruising
Okay.
along.
Business item F4, discussion on ordinance 2023 extraction industry overlay zone, eliminating the multiple use zoning district as a possible zoning district where an extraction industry overlay zoning designation could be applied for and permitted. Riker.
So this ordinance comes as a result of some changes that were made to the MU20 ordinance that you guys saw several meetings ago. However, as we've been reviewing this, staff is requesting that this item, after the public hearing, that it be tabled so that we can ensure that this does not conflict with other codes and so that we can consider other appropriate zones for this overlay.
Any questions? Okay, if we have no further questions, do you have any questions on that?
My screen tilted.
Oh.
On tilt.
Okay.
She's got it, but I can't get it.
My brain tilted on that last one.
It wants me to download.
All right. So if you don't have any questions, I'll open this up for a public hearing.
Yeah, not at the moment. I'll try to get into this.
You better help him, Daisy.
Okay, so I will now open up public hearing, business item F4. Public input is sought on extraction ordinance or extraction industries overlay zone, eliminating the multiple use zoning district as a possible zoning district where an extraction industry overlay zoning designation could be applied for and permitted.
Something I did.
The public hearing is now open. Okay, I'll take a motion to close it.
I make a motion that the public hearing is
Hearing is
closed
closed.
On item.
on item F4. Yes.
Second it.
Got a motion second, take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, now we need a motion.
So what are we actually doing with this? I understand it, but why? Are we, does it read wrong?
So one of the reasons that it's in here is when we changed MU20, the extraction.
We looked at the purposes of what MU20 was for, and we didn't feel like in extraction industries like a major rock crushing operation.
Yeah. Gravel.
within a
gravel.
Beautiful valley.
Fell in line with what the purposes of the MU20.
20 was?
So then we went to the extraction industries overlay zone, and it has an applicability. And we're now saying that it's only limited to the highway commercial, not in the MU20. But I think what Riker is saying, that there is some questions about, would it be appropriate in any other zone? And I have a question about, is it appropriate then in an MPDO zone or something like that?
Well, our thoughts were more for like light industrial zone
And
or.
we've been talking about the possible need to have at some point in time,
Yeah,
possibly a light industrial type setting where there's more like warehousing,
We don't have anything.
which we don't have.
Do have
That might be
some-
a place to do that.
And I researched it a little bit, looking at, like, for example, St. George, they have a gravel and grazing zone specifically for gravel pits and things like that. So we could also do that, but those are things that we'll.
So
have-
so that's why we're asking for this because there's maybe some other things that we're going to change with that whole extraction overlay zone.
Yeah, so
Um,
we should probably give
It
some
makes a
direction.
little more sense to keep it more of an industrial type of use than the like we took it out of that.
Well, and just to say on highway commercial, we don't necessarily want it all on highway commercial either. There might be another area that we could do. For an example, when I think about the interstate rock coming out of Tokerville going into Laverican over there, I don't know if that's highway commercial, but it's so far off of any highway that I don't know that. So it may be a different zoning than highway commercial. So definitely something we need to look at and figure out.
MU20 though, MU20 means a lot of different things.
Well, if you look at the
So I
purpose
don't know
of
if it could be
MU20,
compatible with something that was priorly put in MU20, and then all of a sudden they get a gravel pit next to them.
So what we did is we took it out of MU20 because MU20, it talks about keeping the natural beauty of the
Yeah.
area and all those things. So it didn't fit in that. Our code actually currently, even though it is a little conflicting, it states it in highway commercial as being a conditional use in highway commercial now. And so we were kind of saying, hey, well, let's just put it in highway commercial because it already says that it's a use. And even though the extraction overlay did not say highway commercial, it said MU20. So that was kind of the issue there. And we talked about it and said, highway commercial's there. Let's put it there. But when you think about it further, is that the only spot that a pit could be in highway commercial? And I would say there's
Highway
gotta be
commercial
other
to
areas.
me is property
Commercial.
on the highway.
Right, and that's why we're
And
looking
a
at
gravel
changing
pit
that.
is not a fit right by a highway.
Mm-mm.
It's not a fit in highway.
And that
Well,
is,
I'm sorry.
because then that's why staff is requesting that this be tabled so that we can explore more appropriate zones for this overlay.
Or ways of doing it, because like you said, in the city of St. George, it's a zone.
have
It's always
industrial.
been a tough one because do you temporarily zone something for that and then
and come back. and
like
change
what
design.
Trail Ridge Estates, it had one part of it because they had to take down that whole area, and so they had it zoned residential, but then they had an extraction industries overlay. No, it was split zoned, wasn't it? And now they have to rezone it back before they can get their plat. Which is that the most efficient way of doing things? I think is what staff's really just trying to think through how we're going to do this.
On the existing pits that we do have, are those highway commercial now?
They're actually
At MU20?
MU20, and then there was. I don't think we have. Well, we don't have one right now because the one has expired.
Oh.
Or maybe the one that he and remember Todd Edwards or whatever his name was years and years ago.
Yes, the attorney.
They tried to come in.
Chris Edwards.
They came. Yeah, Chris Edwards. Thank you. They came in a while back and he never completed his
Okay.
application.
Of an active.
So we don't
pit
have any
now.
active
Okay.
right now.
All right,
Not
so
a-
this is-
Well, food for thought. I go through this every day. Have a pit in St. George in Fort Pierce Industrial Park. And it's a bloody fight because all the houses are closing in on me. And St. George wants me out and they can't get me out, but they want me out and they're imposing more restrictions and I don't fit no more. Sunrock don't fit no more and Western Rock's getting close to don't fit no more because they're all fronting Little Valley. So we might want to in depth figure out what Tocqueville really wants it and where it could go.
And that's why I think so. And
what
it's
could
been
be
a bit
surrounding
since
it.
I looked at this, but that was one of the advantages to having its separate zoning and separation and all the different things that were required to have that zoning. So
I'm
The mapping and
I'm
the general
wondering
plan.
If we, instead of doing it as an overlay zoning, that we do it as a very strict permitting process and temporary permit for only a certain period of time. Because I can see that a lot of these operations, they're not prolonged. And a lot of people or landowners will say, you can come excavate, crush, sell off site. But the purpose why they're doing it is because they're trying to level their ground as their ending result of it and to make some profit while their property's not doing.
Well, didn't we do that with Jerry Eves?
Yes, yeah, and
Same thing.
and Trail Ridge Estates is another example of that because
Yep.
now they're ready to have a build, to build residences.
That's what I was forced into, but
So instead of
I can't get it done in the timeline. So they can't kick me out, but I've been 25 years, man. Those people are getting impatient and I'm not moving, but
Yeah,
I am working on developing it and making it all commercial property. But it just takes a lot of time.
I live right by your place.
So would you hurry up?
Dust
And
all the
they-
dust, but I attribute most of that to Bryce Christensen, not to,
You
I'm
know,
sure it's Bryce's.
it's Bryce's fault. That I go outside and my pool furniture is just dusty as can be. And my wife won't let me
You know,
park.
we were there when there was nobody there.
I know.
But we have an opportunity out here now to plan it with this general plan zoning map to place it where it could fit. So
So
everybody
placing
knows it.
Having an overlay saying this is the only place you could apply for an extraction industries permit is only in these places. Not necessarily a zone, just an applicability to where a permit can be granted.
Unless you come into, what if you miss a subdivision that needs to have that to be brought
That's a
down,
good point.
to be developed?
It does. And that
Thinking-
happens
yeah.
a lot.
It does.
Thinking through this out loud with staff,
Yeah.
their mind's going this way.
But I think it's good because we can hear lots of different angles, which
We kind of had the same conversations that you guys are having right now. I think there's just need a little extra time before we bring it back to you.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I need to make a motion.
Yep.
Make a motion on, that we table item F4B.
Got a motion? Take
I
a
second that. Oh,
Okay.
she got me. She beat
I
me.
second it.
Motion second. Any need to further discuss it? Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Adjourn.
Take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn this meeting.
I have a motion. We have a second.
the happiest motion I've heard all
Motion second. Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, adjourn this
Don't ever catch
meeting.
me saying
Time
nay on that.
is 7:31.